back like we never left. It's Double Move Sports. As always, I'm Stef and I'm here with my guy, my partner in crime in this fantasy game, Alex Lott. Say what's up to the people.
What is up, everyone? It is full mock draft season. We've got an awesome mock coming for you today. This is Steph and I drafting on the turn at the 11 and 12 spot. I'm sure we're going to snipe each other plenty in this draft. It's full PPR, standard roster, quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, tight end, flex, defense, and 6 bench.
I'm excited, man. I think there's going to be a lot learning here from on the turn. I know a lot of people, hate the late picks this year, but there's still plenty of value to be found. Guys, if you like what we're doing here on the show, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube and hit that like button. That is huge for us. We're making a big push right now on YouTube. And then if you guys like what we're doing here in these mock drafts, be sure to listen to the show as well. We release segments and clips throughout the week. If you want to hear us talk about specific players and really get into the nitty-gritty, into the stats and some of these takes, go check that out. And without further ado, Alex, let's get it started.
All right, let's hit start on this thing. Steph, I'm super excited to see who we end up with here at 11 and 12. I know I'm going to have my eyes on the running back position. We'll see if I can get maybe a Kenyan Drake or someone like that at the 11 spot. I really don't want to miss out on running back early this year.
I'm with you, bro. I'm with you, yeah. And I'm at the 112, and I'm worried you're going to snipe me. But maybe I can snipe you back here at this turn. So we'll see how these teams turn out. I think there's always a lot to learn from these mocks, even if we're not in love with these teams.
Absolutely.
And now it's up to you. Pretty chalk start. We got CMC, Saquon, Zeke, Kamara, Michael Thomas, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Julio Jones, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins. So looks like you get your pick of the litter here between Kenyan Drake, Miles Sanders, Austin Eckler, even Nick Chubb and Aaron Jones if you want to go there. So who you taking at the 111?
Yeah, I know I said I'm looking at running backs early. Davante Adams is sitting here, though, at the 11 overall spot here, and he's my wide receiver too. And Julio Jones and DeAndre Hopkins both went off the board in front of him, but I really see one more guy in that top tier of running backs. I see a tier break after Kenyan Drake. I think he's in for a massive season in Arizona. He gets work in the receiving game. That offense should be much better this season. He doesn't have a ton of competition. I know Chase Edmonds is there, and they drafted Eno Benjamin, I think, in the 7th round. But Drake should be the workhorse. I love the scheme fit with Cliff Kingsbury, and they utilized him really well last year. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in my RB1, Kenyan Drake.
Very nice. Very nice. So you're taking Kenyan Drake here, and that puts me in a tough spot. I was hoping that you would pull the trigger on Adams so I wouldn't have to make this tough decision. I do have Adams, obviously, as an option. Tyreek Hill's there. Chris Godwin's there. I'm really not looking at running back early, and I have 2 picks. So because I'm sitting here at the turn, I think I might go running back here and actually end up getting both of the guys I like. I could be giving you an absolute layup here with Davante Adams, but I like both Austin Eckler and Miles Sanders quite a bit. They're both going to get receiving work. There's question marks with both of them. Obviously, with Sanders, it's, is he going to get the full-time back duties? Even with Boston Scott there, though, I think he'll be still like an RB1, low-end RB1, high-end RB2 there. And then with Austin Eckler, there's just questions around this offense. I do think, though, that Tyrod is going to be that, short, quick passing game, check down volume. I do expect Eckler to get most of the work there. They just re-signed him. I am considering maybe reaching a little bit and grabbing like a Josh Jacobs, maybe even a Clyde Edwards-Helaire here. I still try to be risk-averse here. So I'm going to go Austin Eckler and Miles Sanders. Go ahead and just shore up that RB core. The fact that this is PPR, yes, Adams is great, and he's going to be fantastic, but the way that and we'll see this as we go through the draft, there's just so much wide receiver depth this year. I'm going to be all right with getting 2 wide receivers as my next 2 picks, so I'm going to take both Eckler and Sanders to start off.
I love that call, Steph, and I have Eckler and Sanders both in my top 12 running backs for full PPR, 2 guys that, there's a little bit more risk associated with them, but just knowing that they're going to get that pass catching work and they have incredibly high ceilings, I don't mind locking up 2 really solid running backs that could easily finish as RB1s this season. I think there's still going to be some pretty good names for you at your receiver spots when it gets back to you. You do have a while to wait, so we'll see, but I think there are enough names there.
I may regret not picking up Adams here, and I'm sure a lot of guys watching right now are like, why the hell isn't he picking Adams? I'm willing to take the risk, especially on a mock draft where we're trying to learn some things. I want to see how my roster is going to turn out here. I have a feeling I'm going to be pretty happy with the 2 receivers I get at the 312 and the 401. But Alex, now back to you at the 202. right after me at this, running back heavy turn here. Who are you looking at?
Yeah, this is easy for me. I mean, you got Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs on the board. If I wanted to go double running back here, those are the names I'd be looking at. Really, Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs stick out to me of that group, but I almost took Adams in the first round, was deliberating between he and Drake. So I end up getting both. Thank you for gifting me with that one, Steph. I'm sure you'll snipe someone from me later on in the draft to make up for it. But starting out with Kenyan Drake and Davante Adams is a really solid start. It feels great. All right, so after Adams, we saw Nick Chubb, Tyreek Hill, Allen Robinson, Aaron Jones, Chris Godwin, Patrick Mahomes, CEH, Josh Jacobs, Lamar Jackson, and Kenny Golladay round out the second round. So a lot of names there, but all in all, pretty chalk. We saw both elite quarterbacks go there in round 2, and then in round 3, we saw both elite tight ends go. Kelsey went at the 301, followed by Gurley at the 302, and George Kittle at the 303. And after that, we saw the receiver run that we've been seeing in a lot of drafts. In that third and fourth round, we saw A.J. Brown, Mike Evans, Odell, DJ Moore, Juju, Adam Thielen all go off the board. Leonard Fournette at the 310, and it's back to me at the 311. I would have really loved to get a running back like a Todd Gurley. He ended up going at the 302. I thought maybe he'd fall to me. He hasn't been falling that far in drafts, but I thought I might get lucky. I don't love the running backs on the board here. Melvin Gordon, Chris Carson, Le'Veon Bell, James Conner. As much as I like some of the receivers. So I'm really looking at this group. I see Amari Cooper, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Calvin Ridley, and those are all guys that I think have a lot of upside this season. Amari Cooper stands out to me. I know that this Cowboys receiving core is a bit crowded now with CeeDee Lamb joining, but this is a team that should pass the ball a ton. We talked about it on the pod before. And Amari Cooper right now is actually my wide receiver 8. I think he has the upside to be an alpha wide receiver 1 in this league. So I haven't done this a lot this year, but I'm actually going to take Amari Cooper and shore up that wide receiver spot and take whichever one of these running back names falls to me in the next round.
Yeah, you sniped me. I was hoping Cooper would somehow sneak back to me here at the 312. So now it's back to me on this turn. I get 2 back-to-back picks at running back. Like you said, right? Like we're a tier down. Melvin Gordon, Chris Carson, Lev Bell, James Conner.
Luckily, you don't got to worry about it.
That's the thing. So at wide receiver, I got my choice of Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods, Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen, Cortland Sutton, Tyler Lockett, DJ Chark.
Tons of great options.
I think I'm actually gonna make potentially a reach here on Mark Andrews to see if I can secure him. That's the thing about playing here. At the turn, I have Andrews as my tight end 3 this year. I think he's going to be fantastic. I think the pass volume is going to go up. We saw. I keep using it as an example, but that playoff loss that the Ravens had where Lamar threw the ball 59 times, that volume is going to be massive.
That's insane.
If the Ravens can't maintain that lead, 59 pass attempts was second out of all of the 2019 regular season, 7th most ever in a playoff game. And so if you're telling me if the Ravens, let's say they aren't as dominant as they were on the ground last year, then I'm getting 59 potential targets that are out there for Andrews to have a slice of. I feel great about that, and he led.
That you can't expect him to come anywhere close to that on a week-to-week basis. I think if they were around 35-40, on an average, that would be insane volume for the Ravens passing game. I don't think anyone expects them to be close to that.
No, they won't be close. That would be insane. But all I'm saying is there's only room to go up for Andrews. If he stays where he was great last year. He had second most touchdowns, had double-digit touchdowns, led amongst all tight ends. For reference, both Kelsey and Kittle had 5 touchdowns, and Andrews had 10. So that's pretty big. The only receiver who, pass-catching weapon that passed him was Kenny Golladay, who I believe had 11 or 12. So man, this is tough for me. I really do want to grab Andrews here. I'm going to go ahead and lock in Robert Woods. Everybody's really talked about Robert Woods a lot this offseason. Cooper Kupp just scares me with that 12 personnel. So I'm going to grab Woods here. I'm going to lock him up. He's a guy that I think everybody's going to be pretty happy with.
You got to go Andrews now at the 401. You got to.
The fact that you're saying that, though, makes me not want to and makes me want to look at Calvin Ridley a little bit.
You literally said you were taking Mark Andrews at the 312. Don't back out of it now. I hope I didn't talk you out of it. I got Lamar Jackson at 485 pass attempts this year. That's around 30 a game. It's more than he had last season. 30 attempts a game would be pretty significant for this Ravens team that wants to run the ball. They should be leading. They have a pretty good defense. So I don't necessarily, I would not take Andrews here. I think he could potentially have a better season than last year if the touchdowns stay the same and the volume goes up. But I don't know. I think some of that upside with 35, 40 pass attempts a game just isn't really realistic for this.
No, it's not,
team.
and that's not my whole argument for taking Andrews. It's that worst case scenario, you get what he had last year. Best case scenario, he explodes and he gets into that. I'm not going to say 140 target range like a Zach Ertz, like a Kelsey, like a Kittle, but I do think he could get 20 more than he had last year, which is about 100 targets. So I think he could get there. There's only room to go up. He was only on the field for 41% of snaps. So we're talking a lot about Mark Andrews, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to pick him.
Yeah.
But it's just one that I'm really considering. It is a bit of a reach, though. I don't think he's going to fall back to me. Let me see here. Other options that I am considering would be like Tyler Lockett, DJ Chark, Terry McLaurin. I feel like one of these wide receivers will fall back to me. For the sake of the mock, let's see how it goes if I reach on Mark Andrews here. So I'm going to take him.
Let's go.
It's a little bit of a homer pick, and I am giving you a blessing.
I wanted to see you do that. The 10 touchdowns last year was huge. Incredibly high touchdown rate, but 64 receptions on 98 targets. You're right. I think with his snaps going up potentially this season, if his health is back.
No Hayden Hurst.
He was banged up last year. He only missed one game, but he was banged up in a lot of those games, and I think he was limited. So if he does get up around that 120 target range, we could see those receptions climb up to that 80 number. And if he can maintain the touchdowns, he'll be right there. So I'm glad you took Andrews because he was not really on my board of consideration here, and I still have my pick of all these running backs. It's actually an interesting spot here because I think, this is tough. I think maybe one of these next tier running backs could get back to me. Like if I'm looking at Jonathan Taylor as my RB2, that feels pretty good. I actually wouldn't mind David Montgomery as my RB2 either, or Singletary. All these names look appealing. So I think I might actually take a risk here. And this is different than everything I've done this season. I'm going to continue to load up on the wide receiver position. Cooper Kupp is still on the board here. Calvin Ridley is still on the board. I have Cooper Kupp as my wide receiver 15. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in Cooper Kupp.
Wow.
And I'm going to stack Davante Adams, Amari Cooper, and Cooper Kupp at the wide receiver spot with Kenyan Drake at running back. And I'm just praying that one of these running backs gets back to me after this long, long stretch.
Yeah, and it's fourth round here, so we're probably going to see another receiver run.
Yep.
And
that's what I'm hoping for.
Yep. We're seeing them go. They're going one by one.
Oh, this is feeling good right now.
Wow, and a lot more in the fifth round as well.
Come on, JT. Let's go.
So after you took, that's awesome. I think this is payback to me for our PPR mock battle where I was getting gifted with every running back.
Oh, that was brutal for me. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch the last mock draft you did. If you want to see Team 4 ruin my hopes and dreams and watch Stef get everyone he wants.
So after you took Cooper Kupp, we had Zach Ertz at the 403. That's reaching to me, and I reached
that probably makes you feel
Andrews.
Better about the Andrews pick.
It does. It actually cements to me that was the right move to go and secure him. I mean, that's the whole thing of drafting here from the turn. But after Zach Ertz went, it was Keenan Allen, Lev Bell, DJ Chark, Chris Carson, 4 receivers: Calvin Ridley, Devontae Parker, Cortland Sutton, Terry McLaurin, James Conner, DK Metcalf, T.Y. Hilton, Tyler Lockett. So a ton of wide receivers going here. Then a few more from that tier that you were looking at: Melvin Gordon, David Montgomery, Jarvis Landry, A.J. Green at the 507. How do you feel about that one, Alex?
I actually don't mind it. I mean, if I'm looking at who this team has, they locked up Dalvin Cook and Aaron Jones in the first 2 rounds, and they came back with DJ Moore, DJ Chark, and A.J. Green. So they'll have A.J. Green as their flex, and if he pays off, he could easily be a top 15 receiver. If he stays healthy, there's no reason to believe he's not going to be a wide receiver 1. You actually had a pretty good take about that a few pods ago about AJ Green's upside. So if he doesn't pay off, if he gets hurt, I mean, I'm sure they're going to find someone to fill in the flex spot. They can take a Jamison Crowder, a Marvin Jones later on, and they're going to be fine. So at the 507 with that roster construction, I actually don't mind it.
Yeah, I'm with you, dude. I really do think this team 7 here is nice. I think that's like a textbook, drafting from the 107. Really like what they got going on. But after AJ Green went, we had Cam Akers, David Johnson, Stephon Diggs, and then back to you at the 511. Sounds like Jonathan Taylor is already the locked and loaded pick here.
He is. I got blessed too by, what was that, Team 7 taking, Team 8 took Cam Akers over David Johnson, over Jonathan Taylor, over Devin Singletary. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. I know he's got good upside, but JT falls to me here as my RB2, and I'm feeling really good about that. I love JT this season. He's going right now as, I think, the RB22 in terms of ADP. And in my opinion, like if he has a 60-40 split, even a 50-50 split with Marlon Mack, I think JT is talented enough behind a good elite offensive line on an offense that should be improved this year to return on that value as an RB2. And if he ends up getting a ton of work, if he, is a 75-25 split, gets the goal line carries, is involved in the receiving game, I think he could definitely be an RB1. So he's one of those solid floor but still high upside guys I love. It might take him a few weeks to get worked up into the offense, but I think he's a back half of the season league winner, and he still should provide value over the first couple games of the year. So I love JT as my RB2 here.
Very nice. Very nice. I like that pick a lot. And that's one that, like you said, worst case scenario, it's like a 50-50 or a 60-40 split, and Taylor can still be great. I think you're going to see him taking a lot of plays of the house. Kid is just so explosive. But back to me here at the 5-12 and the 6-L1. So back to playing this turn game here, and it looks like there's a few different options for me. If I wanted to grab both of the other big Ravens players, like if I want to just invest heavily on the Ravens, I could get Mark Ingram and Hollywood Brown, and I like both of those a lot. But I don't want to, essentially make my team the Ravens 2.0. I'm going to take, we'll take Ingram. We'll take Ingram as my RB3. I like that as I'm not really too worried about J.K. Dobbins. I like the value I'm getting here for Ingram. It's really the last name of this tier. He's a starting running back on a great offense. Should get plenty of touchdowns, check down volume, just like we talked about with the same, Mark Andrews for Mark Ingram, where let's say the Ravens aren't as dominant on the ground, then there's going to be more check down volume to go around. I think a lot of people sleep on how important Ingram was for this offense last year. Even from like a pass pro perspective, he was fantastic and just a big part of this team. So I'm going to grab Ingram as kind of the last like high upside RB1 that is there, RB1 there in terms of like a depth chart play. And he's been an RB1 5 of the last 6 seasons. So I'm going to take Ingram and feel good about that one. And then now here for my second pick, I think I'm looking at wide receiver here. As of right now, I have Austin Eckler, Miles Sanders, Robert Woods, Mark Andrews, and Mark Ingram. So Tyler Boyd is sitting there. He's one that I'm very high on this year. But just the AJ Green, kind of coming in and taking over does scare me. Joe Burrow being a rookie quarterback does scare me. Hollywood Brown I like a lot this year. I'm working on a film room episode for him. He's going to be great, but I already have Andrews and Ingram, so I'm not sure if I want to go all Ravens here. Marvin Jones is there as an upside
Steph, what do you think
play.
about Julian Edelman here?
Dude, I'm so like I'd rather just wait 10 rounds and then get N'Keal Harry if I want to get a New England pass catcher.
No, Steph, I'm telling you, man, I felt the same way, and this week I had to bump Edelman up my rankings. He's moved up from my 30s to my wide receiver 28 because in full PPR formats I just can't imagine he's not gonna be able to see the target volume with Cam Newton. Like Julian Edelman was the wide receiver 7 in full PPR last season. So I know he's old, and it's the combination of Brady leaving, him being older, maybe the offense changes, but I can't help but think Julian Edelman is going to be involved this year, at least to be a high-end wide receiver 3. Not saying you need to take him here, and I'm probably not going to take him at my next pick because I think I need a running back, but Julian Edelman at this stage of drafts, like if I'm grabbing him for my flex, or like with your team, you took a tight end early and you kind of stacked up your running backs, if you need a consistent option as your wide receiver 2, I don't think we're going to see Edelman have the upside of a wide receiver 1 like he was last year as the receiver 7, but he should be a fairly consistent option just like he's been for the past several years.
Dude, that's true. You make a good point. If I had maybe more of like a upside, let's say Odell Beckham was my wide receiver 1, I think Edelman makes a ton of sense here to kind of pair the upside.
You're right. Edelman and Woods is a little bit too conservative.
Exactly. That's the way I'm feeling. And man, it's really hard not to pull the trigger on Marquise Brown. I'm essentially going to get who I think is, the Marquise Brown profile, which is a little bit boom bust, but showed a lot of promise last season, and that's actually Michael Gallup. And I know that'll be a bit of a hot take to a lot of people. I do like Tyler Boyd there, but for Michael Gallup, I know the quarterback play is going to be there, the passing volume is going to be there, and I liked a lot of what I saw from Michael Gallup on tape last season. He was actually outpacing Amari Cooper for target share. Should have been the one there had he played all 16 games. So I'm going to pull the trigger on Michael Gallup. And I know, again, that's a hot take. I'll talk a little bit more about Gallup, I'm sure, on a couple later podcasts. But just for my roster construction and the names that I'm looking at, I feel good taking Gallup here essentially as my wide receiver 2, knowing that I'm pretty good at the tight end spot. And I feel okay streaming wide receiver 2 this year just off the waivers and the wacky COVID year that we're probably going to have. So I'm going to take Gallup here. Not crazy about this pick, but I feel pretty good about it.
Nice. Well, I'm back on the clock here. I have 3 wide receivers, Adams, Cooper, and Kupp. Wow, Cooper Kupp. And I have Kenyan Drake and Jonathan Taylor at running back. So for me, this is pretty chalk. I'm looking at running backs here. And I find myself drafting Kareem Hunt pretty frequently because he's very safe, especially in a PPR format. He's going to get his touches through the air, and he should provide a pretty good flex value or RB2 value. And then if Nick Chubb goes down, we all know that Kareem Hunt's going to vault up to a potential league winner. So that's why I love Kareem Hunt. I'm going to lock him in here. Guys like Devin Singletary and DeAndre Swift are still on the board. I think if my RB2 was a little bit more safe than Jonathan Taylor, just with Jonathan Taylor being a rookie running back, I don't want to take another rookie in DeAndre Swift. I think Swift does have pretty good upside, but I just want something safe. I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt. He should be pretty steady as my RB3, but he still does have that massive upside if for some reason he ever takes full control of his backfield. So I feel pretty good about Kenyan Drake, Jonathan Taylor, and Kareem Hunt as my group of backs.
Nice. And then we saw some tight ends and quarterbacks come off the board.
Run.
Yeah, an interesting QB run here in the 6th round, which is about where I'm seeing these names go. So after you picked Kareem Hunt at the 602, we had Darren Waller, then Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, and Russell Wilson all back-to-back. Then Tyler Higbee, your boy, he did not make it back to you.
Man, I was hoping he'd get back to me. It's a shame because I was hoping either Higbee or Hayden Hurst would get back to me. They both went here in the 6th round.
Yeah, Hurst in the 6th. He's creeping up draft boards. That ADP is skyrocketing. And then after you took Hurst there, we had wow. And looking at this draft board now, I'm kind of kicking myself for taking Gallup because I probably could have waited and gotten a decent wide receiver name. But after Hurst, it was Marquise Brown, Will Fuller, Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman at the 612, I think, could be very sneaky value, especially in a PPR. And look at this guy's other receivers. He has Kenny Golladay, DK Metcalf, and Julian Edelman. I actually think that's a really good receiver core.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's a perfect place to take Julian Edelman as your flex. Look here, he's the 33rd wide receiver off the board. He has McCaffrey and James Conner at running back. He has Kelsey locked in as his tight end. And then still a great receiver crew with a lot of upside in Kenny G and DK Metcalf, and he locks in Julian Edelman to be a really stable flex. That's a great team. And then he throws in Deshaun Watson at quarterback on the turn. So team 1 is out to get some dubs this year, that's for sure.
Well, after he took Edelman and Watson at the turn, it was DeAndre Swift, Tom Brady, Josh Allen, so more quarterbacks. Deshaun Jackson at the 705. That's the earliest I've ever seen him in a mock. Matt Ryan at the 706, Tyler Boyd, Brandon Cooks, Deebo Samuel, Ryan Tannehill at the 710. So then back to you at the 711. It looks like we're about the last guys here that do not have quarterbacks. So where are you looking at for this next pick?
Yeah, 8 quarterbacks off the board since my last pick, and that's actually a beautiful sight to see because I'm still not thinking quarterback this early. So eight picks off the board as quarterbacks is just providing me incredible value here in the 7th round. Steph, I'm looking at this board, and I don't want to do it to you, but like,
don't take Marvin Jones.
I know you're gonna pick Marvin Jones. I'm actually not gonna take Marvin Jones, and the only reason is because somehow Devin Singletary is sitting here at the 7-11 as my 4th running back.
For taking Jonathan Taylor in the 5th, that is an absolute steal to kind of hedge against him getting.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about Singletary over Kareem Hunt last round, and I can lock in both with Jonathan Taylor and Kenyan Drake, and I'm feeling really, really strong about that running back group. I think there's some flyer wide receivers I can take later, and the running back depth evaporates pretty quickly. So I do love Marvin Jones. I'll leave him for you. I know you're desperate for wide receivers right now. And I'm going to lock in Devin Singletary. You should be glad. You should thank all these teams that took quarterbacks that they left Devin Singletary on the board because that just scored you MJJ.
Yeah, I'm definitely pulling the trigger here on Jones. We've talked about him a lot. He's one of these, we're in the mid-round series, a mid-round upside play, a guy you can put into your flex, and you're going to be pretty happy with starting him on about half of his games, and then in a worst case scenario, he's giving you 8 to 10 points in a PPR. Something like 3 receptions for 50 yards. I mean, that's like a worst case scenario for Marvin Jones. So I'm going to grab him, and I like that a lot to kind of pair with Robert Woods and Michael Gallup just to continue to give me upside and options at the position. So here's Marvin Jones, and then some interesting options. I could look at QB here: Carson Wentz, Drew Brees, Matt Stafford, but I think I'm okay waiting, especially with at this point it's a late QB strategy. Alex, you might hate me for this one, but I might actually reach here and grab Ronald Jones.
No way.
Right now, I mean, here's the thing.
That's a great pick. I mean, I would be way more pissed at you right now if I hadn't just secured Singletary and Hunt as my RB3 and RB4. I love securing Ronald Jones as like an RB4. He would be my RB5. I would have loved to have the value, but I probably wouldn't have been looking at him here just because I'm so running back heavy. But I love the pick for your squad, Steph.
I think it's extremely likely that worst case scenario, Ronald Jones, let's say he splits a bunch of time, gets no passing work. I still think he's a low end RB2 in that scenario. I just can't see a world where this offense is just not able to move the ball, is not able to get to the goal line. Bruce Arians doesn't usually start rookies, which is crazy to me that, Keyshawn Vaughn is higher than him in ADP and actually was already drafted.
Jones is going to get all that goal line work. Think about what has made Sony Michel valuable. I mean, not even valuable Sony Michel. I know he gets a lot of heat in the fantasy industry for kind of like sucking and cramming into the line and being hurt all the time. But the one thing that's made him an asset in fantasy at all is because he got all those goal line carries with Tom Brady. Ronald Jones is going to get the goal line carries. He's bulking up this offseason. I just saw a report this week that he's bulked up like 15, 20 pounds. That, to me, tells me they are planning to use him exclusively on the goal line. We talked about him recently on a pod and how efficient he was inside the 5, inside the 10. So I love the pick for Ronald Jones. He's going to be a first and second down workhorse. Keyshawn Vaughn might get worked in a little bit, but Jones still can get it done as a receiver as well. It's not like he's going to get 0 targets on the season. He's going to get the touchdowns. I think he's got a ton of upside. There's a realistic possibility that Jones is an RB1 this year. I'm not saying it's likely to happen, but there's a non-zero chance that he is an RB1 this year.
And I'm not like Ronald Jones is a guy I don't care about the ADP. I don't care that fantasy pros, and all their experts, have him at the RB37.
At this point in the draft, you take your guys.
Yeah, I'm taking my guy here.
At this point in the draft, take shots on guys you like. Absolutely.
It's crazy to me that a third-round rookie taken into a Bruce Arians system is taking here in this draft. He went at the 608, and he's probably going to split some passing work with Darian Gubawale. I don't think they just completely get rid of him, and he's been training with Brady this offseason already. So I'm going to take Ronald Jones here, and I'm going to feel really good about it. I'm fading all the hate about this pick that I may get, and hopefully one of the other running backs here that I have my eye on will fall back to me. You probably already know who I'm talking about. But who are you looking at the 802? Yep. You just went 3 running backs in a row. You have 3 receivers and 4 running backs. So who are you looking at here at the 802? You building up that wide receiver depth?
I mean, Mostert is still on the board, but for the same reason I said I wouldn't have gone Ronald Jones, I'm not going to go running back here. Still not looking quarterback, although Wentz and Breeze are still available. There's a couple receivers I like to get some receiver depth. There's also the tight end position because some of my mid-round targets and Higbee and Hurst are off the board. I'm probably looking away from the tight end spot. Evan Ingram is tempting. I'm not big on Ingram this year. He's so injury prone, but when he's on the field, he's a really solid player. He's very athletic. Daniel Jones.
10 targets a game last year.
Yeah, Daniel Jones is going to look his way. I know it's a bit crowded in New York, so Ingram's tempting, although I know how injury prone he is. I'd still probably take a flyer on a tight end later on. But like in the 8th round, he's good value. I'm not looking at him until he does fall to this point. But there's just too many receivers I like. I think I can scoop a tight end later on. So at the receiver spot, names I like. I mean, Deontay Johnson's here. Darius Slayton is here. But I'm actually going to go with CeeDee Lamb. I have Amari Cooper on my team. Amari Cooper's dealt with some injuries in the past. So I'm going to take CeeDee Lamb as a player who I think can have standalone value just based on his talent and the volume in this offense, but almost as a wide receiver handcuff because if Amari Cooper misses time, if things are sketchy and his snaps are going down due to any kind of injuries, I know CeeDee Lamb is going to vault into immediate relevancy. So I'm going to go ahead and snatch CeeDee Lamb. There's not a whole lot of like handcuffs at the wide receiver position, but this certainly feels as close as you can get to that situation.
Interesting. I was thought for sure you were going to go like Deontay Johnson there or maybe Christian Kirk, somebody like that. But after you took CD, we had Raheem Mostert go, and I think that pick makes a lot of sense. Emmanuel Sanders at the 804, Henry Ruggs, Christian Kirk, Damian Williams at the 807, N'Keal Harry just went at the 808. So somebody's shooting their shot there with Cam Newton looking at the big body receivers. End zone threats. So then after that, Jamison Crowder, Tariq Cohen, Deontay Johnson at the 811. Wow, so back of the 8th. I think that's actually pretty low relative to where I've seen him in a lot of other drafts, both mock and real drafts. James White, 49ers defense. Then 4 receivers, some names that I really like here. Justin Jefferson, Anthony Miller, Sterling Shepard, and Preston Williams all went back to back. Then Darius Geis at the 906, Kerryon Johnson at the 907, Rob Gronkowski at the 908, John Brown, Darius Slayton got taken one pick
Wow.
before you. I think that would have been an insta pick for you if he made it back. So who are you looking at, Alex, at the 9-11 here?
Well, it's crazy. I talked about Ingram as a value last round, and Evan Ingram is still on the board at the 9-11. I mean, I'm looking at this, and I look at your team, and you locked up Mark Andrews early, so I don't think you're going to take Evan Ingram here as a second tight end. So I'm actually going to wait and try to get him at the 10:02. So for me, I'm looking I've got really good wide receivers: Davante Adams, Amari Cooper, Cooper Kupp, and then CeeDee Lamb at the running back spot. Kenyan Drake, Jonathan Taylor, Devin Singletary, Kareem Hunt. So I'm going to wait and get a tight end after the turn here. So I'm really looking at maybe this is where I want to take a shot on a quarterback. I mean, we're sitting at the back of the 9th round, and Carson Wentz and Drew Brees are still available. Stafford, Rodgers, Daniel Jones are all still there. There's still some good values at the running back spot. Steph, I'm going to let you have Jordan Howard. That's someone I'm definitely looking at here. Jordan Howard and Matt Breida are still the top 2 running backs according to Fantasy Pros ECR here on the board. And at the receiver spot, there's a lot of rookies: Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Reagor are 2 guys here at the top. Ayuk's close, Mike Williams. Some real stashes and deep shots there. So at this point in the draft, I feel like snagging Carson Wentz is an extreme value in the back of the 9th round. I like waiting typically a little bit longer for Stafford, Rodgers, Jones. So I'm actually going to go ahead and take Carson Wentz. I think he is a great quarterback if he can stay healthy and his team can stay healthy. I know there's already been a lot of drama around the Eagles this offseason. Some of their receivers, Alshon Jeffrey's probably going to start on the PUP. Their starting guard, all-pro guard, Brandon Brooks, went down. So there's already some problems there, but Wentz is a good quarterback. In fantasy, he can run. He throws the ball a ton. This is a good Eagles offense typically. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in a quarterback here with Carson Wentz.
Yeah, and he's a really safe option too. Like worst case scenario, you're getting like, 1 touchdown and 200 yards, which I know that's not anything crazy, but you waited a while. You waited till the 9th round to even look at QB, and then the one you got is an upside play, but also a very safe play. So maybe you can pair him with maybe like a Drew Lock or a Gardner Minshew, a Joe Burrow, something like that at the end of the draft as well to kind of get that upside at the QB spot too. So now back to me at the 9-12, and I kind of already prefaced this pick. I released a full take on this on our last pod. I put it all out on Twitter as well. I like Jordan Howard a lot this season as the featured back, the power back, goal line back, first and second down guy on this Dolphins offense. Essentially upgraded every single part of their team: the O-line, the defense, their quarterback. I mean, I only see room to go up for the Dolphins, and I think some of that will go towards Jordan Howard. I think they'll be able to get the ball into the red zone where Howard can get those high-value carries. I think he's a guy who's being pretty slept on right now. So I'm going to take Howard, and I'm going to feel good about it. Guys, 3rd most attempts, 3rd most rushing yards since being drafted in 2016. So he's been pretty good. Last year was the RB15 before he went down. So I'm going to take Howard here to shore up that running back core. And so now I have Austin Eckler, Miles Sanders, Ronald Jones, Jordan Howard, and Mark Ingram.
Wow.
So I feel really good at running back now. So pretty much for the rest of this draft, I'm looking at wide receiver depth. I have Mark Andrews, so not really looking at tight end. May look at quarterback here because now it's here at the turn. So the 10:01. And let's see what receivers are still available. Mike Williams, Jerry Jeudy, Golden Tate, Jalen Reagor. And man, I actually don't hate the Golden Tate pick here. What do you think about that, Alex?
I mean, out of these New York Giants receivers, you've got Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, and Golden Tate. If I had to pick one, like value aside from my fantasy team, I'm probably taking, I know you'd probably take Shepard, but I'm taking Darius Slayton because I think he has tremendous upside as a deep threat, scoring touchdowns, racking up a lot of yards, things like that with Daniel Jones, who loves to throw the ball down the field. But honestly, Golden Tate's the best value of the 3. Slayton and Shepard are already off the board. They're, typically a round or 2 ahead of where Golden Tate's going. But Golden Tate, I think if you look at this Giants wide receiver core, has just as good a chance as the other 2 to finish as the top scoring wide receiver, especially in PPR formats. So if I'm looking at this group, I find myself actually taking Golden Tate more than the other 2, just because the value is there. And he's a guy you can stick in during bye weeks, put him in your flex, and he could go for 25 points, and he should be fairly consistent along the way.
Yeah, he's a guy I'm definitely looking at here. And it's really, for me, it's between, do I want kind of the safer, older, probably more consistent option in Golden Tate, or do I want to take the risk in a wide receiver in their first year, Jalen Reagor? And we just talked about some of the turmoil that Philly's under right now.
Steph, I'm about to blow your mind, and probably this will probably make your pick for you. Golden Tate last season played 11 games. I think was last year when he had the 4-game suspension to start the year.
Yes.
I think it was. So he averaged 13.8 points per game in PPR formats. He averaged more points per game when he was on the field than Terry McLaurin, A.J. Brown, Christian Kirk, Odell, Debo, T.Y. Hilton. So he was putting up points last year, more than a lot of these names. I know like A.J. Brown and Debo are getting ramped up as rookies, even Terry McLaurin, but a lot of these guys are being drafted much earlier, and Golden Tate's just one of those names that's kind of like a dud. People are forgetting about him. But Golden Tate, I think, still has a lot left in the tank, and he should be a fairly consistent option for Daniel Jones. I think people are definitely sleeping on him, and he's a value here. What are we, the 10th round? He is a definite value in the 10th round.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pull the trigger on Tate. You know, Rager is very appealing to me, and I've picked him in a lot of mocks this year, but I think for the wide receiver core that I have, Golden Tate does make sense, especially as he's my wide receiver 4 behind Robert Woods, Michael Gallup, and Marvin Jones. So Marvin Jones and Michael Gallup kind of give me the boom upside. He really is a depth piece. You know, even though he's not maybe the one on the Giants, I still think he can be great.
Good stuff. And I'm going to actually go ahead and I talked about it last time, so I'm not going to really spend any time here. I'm not actually in on Evan Ingram this year. I don't find myself drafting him anywhere, but this is probably the farthest I've ever seen him fall in a mock draft. We're sitting here at the 10:02, and Evan Ingram's on the board. I totally punted the position. I'm deciding between like him and Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, Jared Cook, Mike Gesicki, and we've seen it from Evan Ingram before, so this is a lock for me. I'm not even going to waste our time. Same situation with the Giants. Daniel Jones should take a step forward this year. I know you and I both like him a lot. I'm going to go ahead and lock in Evan Ingram as an upside tight end. I might come back to the position a little bit later on, just knowing the injury history that Evan Ingram has, and take, a Blake Jarwin or a Jack Doyle or someone who I can plug in just in case the wheels fall off for Evan Ingram. So after Ingram, in the 10th round, we saw Tevin Coleman, Brashad Perriman, J.K. Dobbins, Hunter Renfrow, Mike Williams, Jerry Jeudy, Steelers D, Matt Breida, McCole Hardman, and Jalen Reagor go off the board. And then in round 11, Latavius Murray, Hunter Henry, Michael Pittman, Darrell Henderson, Jared Cook, Sony Michel, Mike Gesicki, Phillip Lindsay, Jack Doyle, and Alan Lazard. So that's a mouthful. That's a lot of names. But looking back on this, I'm glad I locked in Ingram. 4 more tight ends came off the board in between this pick for me. So I'm glad I got a guy at the position that I think does have a ton of upside when I did.
Yeah, I had about 8 wide receivers going in that range too. Look at names like, everyone's kind of shooting their shot here. Brashad Perriman, McCole Hardman, Jalen Reagor, who I was just looking at as my pick. Michael Pittman here. So it looks like, 9, 10, 11th round is where you can get kind of these, the rookie upside wide receivers like a Reagor, like a Jeudy, or you can get more of like a consistent piece like a Hunter Renfrow, who's not going to go out and win you a week, but you can plug him in on the right matchup. And then a couple running backs here. I do like Phillip Lindsay at the 11:08. I think that could be an incredible value if he's, he could be this year's Austin Eckler for all we know, kind of that pairing with Melvin Gordon. But Alex, who are you looking at here at the 11:11?
This is kind of that handcuff range. And for me at the running back spot, well, first of all, I'm going to gift you Drew Brees. I can't believe he's fallen this far. And this is, again, why you wait on the quarterback position this year. We've said it time and time again. This is no different. But at the running back position, Marlon Mack's there, and having Jonathan Taylor, I think Mack has some standalone value, but it's if they're both on the field, they're probably the least valuable as a tandem. I would much rather have one of them be out, Mack or Taylor, assume the full responsibilities. But if Mack goes down, that means Taylor's going to be, an RB1, and I got to steal on the value. But if something happens to Taylor, maybe he's not as involved early on as I thought, and Mack is that RB1. I don't mind having Marlon Mack there just as a handcuff. And then there's Alexander Mattison, Tony Pollard, Boston Scott. Looking at this board, I know the Dalvin Cook holdout is still going on as of this recording, but I'm still going to take Alexander Mattison here. I think Dalvin Cook is going to sign. I really do. But with his injury history, with the COVID year that we're expecting, you never know what's going to happen. There's so many variables. I'm going to take Mattison, and the upside with him, maybe I can get a couple weeks out of value from Alexander Mattison this season. So at this point in the draft, I feel great about locking him in.
So we're talking about handcuffs here. I've been preaching, if you have one of the top running backs like a Zeke, like a Kamara, like a Saquon or McCaffrey, go ahead and get your handcuffs in round 10 just with the type of season that we're expecting and a lot of weird stuff going on. And just to secure that value, should one of those guys go down, grab your handcuffs early. Don't be afraid to take them, especially the high value ones. Even like a Chase Edmonds or Tony Pollard, take those guys in that 10th round. And now it's here to me at the 11-12. You just took Alexander Mattison. I think it's a guy that also has standalone value, but is a handcuff. Boston Scott is looking at me here, and I took Miles Sanders at the 201. So that's kind of a way that I can have a handcuff on Sanders, secure him. And I think he has value in PPR formats. So I have Jordan Howard, Ronald Jones, Austin Eckler, Miles Sanders, and Ingram. Yeah, so I'm loaded up. So this is going to be my last running back pick here. So I'm going to grab Boston Scott. And, you kind of foreshadowed it here. Drew Brees is sitting here. Now I'm at the, what is this? The 1201. So I'm in the 12th round getting Drew Brees, a guy who's going to have 25-plus touchdowns, throw for, over 4,000 yards, like easily.
And the thing is, like, even if Brees was gone, Stafford, Rodgers, Daniel Jones, Ben Roethlisberger, Goff, Mayfield, Newton, Burrow, all still on the board. Cousins. Like, the list goes on and on. There's no reason to take a quarterback early this year.
Yeah, so I'm going to secure Brees here. And, I punted the quarterback position, but technically I didn't because I'm still getting Drew Brees, which I think is a guy that a lot of people would take. I don't know if in any real drafts, if everybody's going to be that anti-quarterback. So we'll see if that holds true once we get into the real seasons and the live mock drafts. But, Alex, who are you looking at here at the 1202?
Yeah, I'll be quick here for the sake of time, but I also have 5 running backs. For my last 2 bench spots, because I did take Ingram, I'm looking for a safer option at tight end. And then I'll probably take a flyer on a receiver in the next round. But Austin Hooper is on the board, and I know there's a lot of exciting options here like Fant, Hawkinson, Jonnu Smith, Blake Jarwin. But I'm going to lock in Hooper. The Browns just made him the highest paid tight end in NFL history. Stefanski's going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. I think the offense will get a little bit better this year. I don't think Hooper has the upside that he had last season where he was like the number 1 tight end through half the season until he got hurt. But I'm going to take Hooper as a guy who I know I can plug in there if something happens to Evan Ingram, and he might get me 5 catches for 50 yards, and maybe he gets a touchdown in this Cleveland offense. So I don't find myself taking Ingram or Austin Hooper very often this season. I think this might be the first time I've taken either of them in a draft, but Ingram at the 1002 and Hooper at the 1202 it feels free, especially when you look at the names going off the board around these guys like Allen Lazard and Brashad Perriman, Jamal Williams, Antonio Gibson does have upside. But when you look at those names and you can tell me I can get value at the tight end position, I'm going to take that every time.
I don't hate it. I personally, I would have gone with a Noah Fant or Hawkinson or maybe even like a Jonnu Smith, just more of an upside name. But at the same time, it's like Evan Ingram kind of is that already. So
exactly.
Don't hate the Austin Hooper pick there for you. And then we saw a massive.
This is the handcuff round.
Running back run, deep running backs. These are the handcuff rounds, man. I mean, we have. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the Marlon Macks of the world, Zach Mosses of the world, Devontae Freeman was picked up, Tony Pollard, Justin Jackson, Chase Edmonds. Alex, how do you feel about having Kenyan Drake as your pick at the 111 and not getting Chase Edmonds? I know you picked up Alexander Madison, but are you kicking yourself at all for that one?
Yeah, I maybe should have gone ahead and secured Edmonds maybe instead of Madison just to protect myself a little bit more. But with Taylor, Kareem Hunt, and Singletary, I still feel okay at the running back position. Some other names off the board: Fant, Jonnu Smith, Hawkinson. Some of those high upside tight ends I talked about went. Josh Kelly, AP, A.J. Dillon, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, both off the board. Duke Johnson was in there, Jamal Williams, some veteran running backs as well. So here I am at the 13-11. It's my last bench spot before a defense. I'm going to go ahead and take a guy I had my eye on last round. It's James Washington for the Steelers. He actually led the Pittsburgh Steelers in receiving yards last season. Here I am in the last round of my draft, snagging a player who had high draft capital coming into the league. He has a year of rapport with Ben Roethlisberger. And I still think Deontay Johnson is the more talented player there in Pittsburgh. And I think beyond Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson is the most likely to have fantasy value. But looking at this board and seeing Deontay Johnson going in the 8th round, I picked up James Washington in the 13-11. There's a decent chance that James Washington does have value in this offense if Ben Roethlisberger gets back to throwing it close to 600 times. So, if James Washington isn't involved, if he's not getting the snaps in week 1 or 2, I'll just drop him. But I think for an upside play, he's not a bad pick here.
Yeah, I think that's he's one of those, deep sleeper wide receiver names, and kind of that, we've talked about Randall Cobb on the show, even looking at what are some other names? I mean, I don't hate John Ross as a last pick here. It's just a dart throw at the end of your draft. Laviska Shenault's an interesting one too. I'm actually going to go against all those names, which I were considering, because Danny Dimes just fell to me here to pair with Drew Brees at the back of the 13th round. So,
I love it.
I'm getting the upside shot where if Danny Dimes comes in, I mean, even if he is Jameis Winston 2.0, which I think is a worst-case scenario for him based on what we saw last year, kid is just fearless, stepping up in the pocket, taking big hits. I think if he can minimize those, and I think that's going to be priority number one for him in this offseason. So if he can take any improvement there, he'll be fantastic. He was great last year. Plenty of upside. Has loaded pass catching weapons from Evan Ingram to all the other guys we've already talked about on today's episode. So I'm going to grab Danny Dimes here as to pair with Drew Brees and feel really good at QB.
Well done, sir.
So now back to me again at the 1401. So I'm going to pick up a defense. Yeah, guys, make sure you know your league rules, your settings before you go into a draft. There's some where you actually don't have to take a defense. And so something I like to do is just don't even take one and then wait and then have to drop somebody on your team just so you can see as the season goes on, as you get closer to the starting of week 1, you can make last-minute decisions. We see guys like LaShawn McCoy last year get cut relatively close to the season. And so in situations like that, you can end up having a guy that you threw a dart throw on. Let's say it's a Randall Cobb, and then we're hearing, Will Fuller's not going to play this year, for example. Like, you could just have so many, other dart throws that could pay off in that time, but let's make the assumption here that we do have to take a defense, and so I'm just going to see what Fantasy Pros is telling me to take. It's the Buffalo Bills D, but also Patriots defense is there, and so I'm taking the Patriots defense. I don't care.
Dang, I was hoping they'd get back to me. And Steph, before I take this Bills D, I just want to say this might be my favorite team I've ever mock drafted. Like, I feel so solid from top to bottom. And we'll review the teams here afterwards, so I'll go ahead and pick the Bills D, but I'm really liking how this turned out. So don't complain about having one of the last picks in your draft, because you can win from anywhere in the draft every single year. And here we are. We've done mocks from the 1 through 10 spot, and I feel really, really strong about this team. Have good depth at the running back spot, star power at receiver, got it done at quarterback and tight end, and some good players on my bench too. So I love it. And drafting here at the turn, I'll say, we both ended up with pretty solid squads. A little bit different. I know if you could go back, would you probably take receivers a little bit earlier?
Yeah, maybe taking Adams there as my wide receiver 1. I took Austin Eckler and Miles Sanders there. I like both of those names, and I think the upside for both is tremendous, and I also think they're safe. I don't think either of those are going to kill me, assuming good health. Robert Woods is my wide receiver 1. Doesn't feel great, but knowing that I have Mark Andrews in there does make me feel a little bit better on that. I love my running back room of Austin Eckler, Miles Sanders, Mark Ingram, Ronald Jones, Jordan Howard, and Boston Scott. I think all of those guys have value, and maybe a little bit tricky to figure out which one to start and when. But I feel very secure in the running backs that I have. Not really, looking to stream too much of my running back positions. So I think I have enough on my roster now, the depth and the upside, to be okay at running back. You may be looking back on it, wouldn't have hated grabbing like a DJ Chark there instead of Mark Andrews. That's probably the biggest thing that I would have changed should I have been able to gone back. I just feel like I'm lacking a little bit of the upside at the wide receiver position. Marvin Jones is there. Maybe I take a Jalen Reagor over Golden Tate, but all in all, I feel good everywhere else, and I feel comfortable streaming that wide receiver 2 or that flex position on a week-to-week basis. So that's the only thing I would change, Alex. How about you?
Yeah, looking back at the board, I do like this team. I feel, even with Evan Ingram and Austin Hooper, I still don't feel great at tight end. I love Tyler Higbee. At the 607, that's probably decent value for him this year. I really would have felt more comfortable getting him in the 7th round. At what point are you not a sleeper anymore? And at the 607, for Tyler Higbee, I hope he stops creeping up draft boards, because I really want to get him later on. But if I would have known that Devin Singletary was going to be available as my RB3 in the 7th round, I might have gone ahead and taken the shot on Higbee instead of Kareem Hunt, and scooped up a couple extra handcuffs later on when I took Ingram and Austin Hooper. So if I could switch out Kareem Hunt, Evan Ingram, and Austin Hooper and pick up Higbee, and throw in 2 handcuffs, maybe I secure Edmonds, and maybe I get like a Tony Pollard or something like that, and just really load up on running backs on my bench, I think I would have felt good about that. But other than that, I really like the draft. I've got Wentz at quarterback, really good running back depth. Kenyan Drake, Jonathan Taylor, Singletary, Hunt, and Alexander Madison. My receivers, my 2 starters in the flex, Davante Adams, Amari Cooper, and Cooper Kupp. That feels phenomenal. The bench
Cooper Kupp as a flex is insane, dude.
The bench, all I have is CeeDee Lamb and James Washington, so definitely some deeper shots there. And at the tight end, I was able to still secure Evan Ingram and Austin Hooper late, which aren't my favorite options this year, but if one of the 2 of them can pan out or at least be decent, a top 10, top 12 option, I think I'll be all right with the rest of my roster.
Yeah, I like your running back core mixed with the I think upside and consistency you're going to get from the running backs is just it's a winning formula, and then Wentz in there as a consistent option. You can stream should, you know, a Joe Burrow, somebody like that, or a Drew Lock blow up on the waiver wire. You could even make moves there. So no, I like both of our teams. I'll go through mine, and then guys, if you're still listening, thank you so much. Would love to hear who you like, whose roster you think was better based on mine and Alex's. So mine is Drew Brees, Austin Eckler, Miles Sanders, Robert Woods, Michael Gallup, Mark Andrews at tight end, Mark Ingram as my third running back and flex, and then I have Marvin Jones as another, my third wide receiver or flex, Jordan Howard, Ronald Jones, Danny Dimes, Golden Tate, and Boston Scott, as well as the New England Patriots defense. So I actually like my roster a lot.
Dude, and you also have a team name. You're set up for a prime team name, keeping up with the Joneses. You've got Marvin Jones, Ronald Jones, Daniel Jones. That's nuts. And you've got some gold on your bench. So with Golden Tate, I love it.
I'm feeling pretty good about my depth. So guys, again, let us know whose roster you like more down in the comments. Really appreciate you guys listening and watching. If you like it, hit that thumbs up button. Give us a sub on YouTube if you would be so kind. And we'll see you next time.
Peace.